All right. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Success Spotlight, where we highlight inspiring entrepreneurs, people who are making a positive difference in the world. And today we have a very special guest. His name's Jorge Contreras. He's in the Airbnb real estate industry, and he's also coaching people on how to create their own coaching programs online. And so he's a great example of someone who's pivoted really well during this quarantine. And I wanted to have him hop on to share pretty much how he started his business, how he got into Airbnb, and how he's pivoting during this quarantine today. So I'd like to welcome on Jorge Contreras.
Hey, how's it going, Ray? Thank you for having me. Truly a pleasure and an honor to be here at Success Spotlight today.
Awesome. And yeah, I just wanted people to kind of get to know you, a little background about you, how you got into entrepreneurship, and also kind of how you got into Airbnb, because that's a very, it's like colleges don't teach that, right? And I know you didn't go learn that in school, you learned that on your own. So can you just explain how you got into entrepreneurship and how you got into that business?
Yeah, definitely. So when I was 20 years young in 2007, I had a decision to make: stay at my safe and secure 9 to 5 and stay in college, or drop out of college, quit my 9 to 5, and build a business of my dreams. And so that's what any crazy entrepreneur like me that will jump off a mountain and build an airplane on the way down do. So I quit my 9 to 5, dropped out of college, and started my first business. And then in 2012, I started to purchase real estate. In 2016, at the end, I started to hear about Airbnb and how you could double, triple your cash flow compared to long-term rentals. And so in 2017, in the quarter, those long contracts and leases were ending, I started to launch one by one 4 of my existing properties. And then I got into subleasing and co-hosting, started making 6 figures in 2017, added another 6 figures of cash flow in 2018, which then my wife was able to retire her 9 to 5. And over time, as I kept sharing my success, my strategies, the mindset around building an Airbnb empire, people kept asking me, Jorge, how do you do it? Can you teach me? Can you show me? And that's when in 2018, I created the Real System, which in its own has become a very successful online coaching program to help people how to go from 9 to 5 to building the business of their dreams.
Awesome. And you also have an online coaching program too, where you help people make their own online coaching programs,
Exactly.
right?
So
Yeah.
what
Awesome.
happened then, as you know, the only thing that is constant is change. And I'm always pivoting, adapting to whatever changes are going on in the world. And during the pandemic in March, April of 2020, for many months, I had people asking me, how did you build the Real System? And so I launched the BTC method, which is breakthrough transformation, teaching coaches how to go from 0 to 10K a month by building their online course and coaching business.
Yeah. And I know Airbnb. It's you don't really own the property itself. Would you recommend doing it that way, or just owning property and then using that to rent it out to people?
Yeah, so there's really 3 ways to get into Airbnb. You could either buy properties, you can rent them and put them on Airbnb, or you can co-host. So buying does require a lot of capital, a lot of money, because you got to put the first month, I'm sorry, you got to make the down payment, closing costs, and then furniture, appliances, supplies. So the cool thing is that when you do subleasing, you don't need to buy the properties. You could just use other people's properties and launch the business. And then at the third level, once you have experience, you don't need to buy them or rent them. You could just manage and co-host other people's properties and make a percentage of the entire revenue without putting any money into the deal. So I believe there's 2 types of people out there right now: people that have the money and they actually want to buy, which is what I recommend, because that's how you build long-term wealth, by buying and holding real estate. For those people that say, Jorge, I'm not in a position to buy, what can I do? And I always say, one of my philosophies is do what you can with what you have where you are. And I guide them through the co-hosting process, which requires, again, zero money. You just need to get the know-how, and that's what I teach in the Real System.
Yeah, and you've helped a lot of people achieve financial freedom through that. And I don't think there's a lot of Airbnb mentors out there. I think there's more real estate coaches. I haven't met as many Airbnb coaches, but did you learn all these strategies on your own, or did you have someone teach you? How were you able to get into this industry?
Yeah. So one of the places where I got my education was at the Rich Dad coaching company. It's their largest real estate investing company in the world. I became a student in 2015, where I had a mentor who is a multimillionaire that trained and coached me on mindset and on strategy, on how to create wealth, how to become a millionaire, how to create success financially, how to build successful businesses. And that is really where I learned at the core on how to invest and how to go from working for money to making money work for me. And then that's now what I teach other people.
Awesome. And so you did have a mentor. You started from the Rich Dad, company, and then I know you also talk about those four quadrants. Employee to self-employed to investor, and I think the last one
Business owner.
was, what was that?
Business owner.
Oh, yeah, business owner. Yeah, and so um, I think all these things school doesn't teach us. And for you, where did you kind of learn all of this? Was it just kind of on your own, and that you kind of learned it through the Rich Dad company, or was it through books
Yeah.
and that?
So it's a good question. I remember I was sitting, I forgot where I was sitting and waiting for, I think at a bank. And I'm sitting next to this really old lady. And we start talking. And she was saying how on my, and she's like, I see all these young people just on the phone, not being productive. And I said, actually, I'm making money right now. She's like, really? Tell me about that. So I started telling her about my life and about my businesses. And she's like, did you have to go to school to learn to learn how to be successful? And I said, actually, I didn't have to go to school, but I did have to get educated. And so the school system teaches you how to become a slave to a paycheck, right? And even if you go to get a business degree, it's still to work for someone else's business. And so what
Yeah,
I've learned, if you want to learn how to become an entrepreneur, you should learn from an entrepreneur, not a professor who makes $40,000 at the college, right? If you want to
yeah,
become a millionaire, who is already a millionaire in your industry. So always learn from someone who already has the result and outcome that you desire. If you want to be a college
true.
professor, then go and get a degree and learn from a college professor. But that's my philosophy. In short, Ray, I've learned from people that have already created the results that I wanted and had the desire to create.
Awesome. And I think a lot of people. How do you go about reaching out to those types of people? Because sometimes you might feel like they might not respond, or they're not going to get in touch. And I guess how do you get them to support you, or help? Yeah,
Yeah. So the first thing is that if you don't ask, the answer will always be no. So,
you answer.
like I think it was Michael Jordan. He said, I miss every shot I don't take. I miss it. So you lose
Yeah,
nothing and gain everything by asking. And from there, things will begin to unfold. What if you reach out to five people and one replies? Great, you know.
yeah. So it's just a matter of just reaching out and trying, and to keep at it, right? And so, what do you think stops most people from doing that, or from reaching out? I guess.
Fear of rejection and fear of
Mm,
being judged, fear of failing, it always comes down to mindset because it's not a strategy. It's a belief. It's a pattern. It's a way of thinking. So definitely people have a fear of like, hey, I'm not going to reach out to them because if they don't respond, then I'm going to feel unworthy. I'm going to feel like I'm not worthy of that opportunity. And so I always say, ask, believe, receive. You got to first ask because if you don't ask, the answer will always be no. Believe,
yeah,
right? Believe that it's possible from a place where 100% is possible 100% of the time. Believe and then allow yourself to receive. But you can't receive unless you ask.
true, true. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest traits that helped you to be successful, of asking. I think a lot of people have trouble with that, including myself sometimes, just because it's like you want to figure it out on your own, but it's there's certain things that we don't know everything, right? Nobody knows everything, and we all need to we get to ask for support when we need. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people have that mindset where it's like the lone wolf, right? And a lot of people kind of function on that way. And I know you took MITT, which is like a emotional intelligence workshop that also deals with things like that, and so that's pretty awesome. And I'm also in your coaching, the online coaching program, so that's been cool. I definitely get to reach out for support, which I've done, right, in the Facebook groups. But
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
uh, yeah, and for you, I guess, like what is something that you think helps contribute to someone's success, either in Airbnb or just like your coaching programs or personally?
Yeah. So number one is to have a why. So I always say to myself, one of my whys is to create a lasting impact and legacy. So I always think of Martin Luther King. Even though he died decades ago, he still lives today through video, audio, books from decades ago. So his beliefs, his philosophies, his wisdom, his knowledge is still impacting lives today. And that's
Yeah,
how I see myself, that one day when my body leaves this earth, I will be remembered for the lasting impact that I created in people's lives. And then another thing is having a big why that has an emotional connection. So, for example, I'll share with you my why is I grew up without my father. He passed away when I was 12 years young from alcohol. And I experienced a lot of challenges, obstacles, and trauma from that abandonment from that experience that I created based on how I decided to perceive it. So one of my whys is to be the father and example for my daughter that I didn't have. And the reason it's important, Ray, to have a big why that has an emotional connection is when things get rocky and challenging. If your why is anything that can be replaced, like a car, house, or money, you'll easily quit. But in my example, when things get rocky and tough and challenging, I think about my daughter and the example that I want to give her, and therefore I will not quit.
yeah. I think if you know your why, then you could bear through anyhow. Or I think I heard something like that. If you have a strong enough why, you could bear through anyhow. So would you say people who don't succeed don't have a big enough why, or would you say it's more of just other things like that? Other
Yeah,
factors.
I think it's a combination of one, they're not in the right environment. So if you think of a bunch of crabs inside of a bucket, when one crab is trying to climb out, all the crabs pull them down. And often people's circle of influence, friends, family, spouse, is just like those crabs. Rather than pushing each other out of their comfort
Yeah,
zone, they pull each other down. So number one
yeah,
is people are in the wrong environment, because if you were surrounded by five people that are motivating you, inspiring you, they're fanning fire to make your fire go bigger, man, you people would just excel. But people don't have the right environment, they don't have the right support. That's why the coaching programs are so incredible, because you're surrounded by other like-minded individuals on the same journey and path. So I would say that's definitely one, the wrong environment, and then of course not having a why or a big enough why, and their vision has to expand much bigger and beyond just themselves. Because if the vision and goal is only to give like to myself, then you'll quit on yourself. But if you're on a mission to save lives, like Tony Robbins, he's got a big vision and a big why, and he's not going to quit until he gets there. So having a
yeah.
big why and vision outside of yourself.
Big why and a vision, awesome. And would you say that that's like digging pretty deep? Would you say that some people might have that, but maybe they're in for example, like it's easier to be in your comfort zone than out of it, right? And so, what are some things that help you to push out of that and to like really push yourself, especially when no one else is kind of pushing you? You know,
Is having a goal in mind. So wherever you are in your life, let's say that your goal is to 5x your income. You want a point, you want to have an end goal, and then you want to create a POA, like a plan of action on how you're going to get there. And I would say
Yeah.
another thing is going back to that book, The One Thing, and really being able to focus on that. So the book talks about what's the one thing that if you did that successfully, everything else would become unnecessary. So don't try to do too many things at once because you're going to get frustrated,
Yeah.
you're going to get overwhelmed, you're going to quit.
Yeah. So the one thing is just focus on one thing that can support you and just focus solely on that. Right. Okay. Awesome.
Exactly. Focus on
And
the
what
one
was that
thing that's
by?
going to help you create the outcome you.
The outcome you desire, you said? Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, I think I also want to share a bit, with people, kind of your story of kind of like how you pretty much, came from an environment where it was toxic for you, and then you came out of that to building a thriving family. And so I think that's really worth talking about. So yeah, I mean, if you're open to share, just kind of like how you were
Yeah,
able to come out
definitely.
to.
So going back to what I said earlier about environment being very
Yeah.
important, the good thing is that you can change your environment. So I grew up in an environment where my dad was a drug dealer for about 25 years, and I used to sell drugs with him when I was 7 years young. We used to smuggle people across the border, anything illegal. My dad did it, and he was also an alcoholic. I had a brother when I was 5 years young who was murdered when he was 16 because of gang affiliations. And I was able to completely change my environment. And rather than live a life by default, I was able to live a life by design. And I was able to
Yeah.
do that by changing my environment.
Okay. And so you would go out and seek for people who are in different environments and doing different things, right, to grow. Things like that.
Yeah. And it also started just with myself. I didn't, because I was 12 years young when I attracted my first mentor, just the idea that I planted a seed in my head of, I want better, there's got to be more. Then I started attracting people that actually came into my life because of that intentionality.
Okay. So how do you set intent? How do you set your intention? How would you? How does someone go about setting their intention? Do they just start in the morning with meditation, or what do they
Yeah.
do?
So one of those things is, I'll give you an example, is you come up with a goal. And
Yeah.
ideally, a goal that has an emotional connection where it could be money, but maybe the money that you seek or desire is so you could buy your mom a home, right?
Yeah.
And so imagine
Yeah.
that that is your goal. And you say, hey, I'm going to buy my mom a home, a house in the next 2 years. So you write it down, and every morning, first thing you do when you wake up is, you pick up that notebook where you have it written down. I am going to buy my mom a home by such and such date. And then you close your eyes and you do a creative visualization where you say, you ask yourself and you go through the experience, a creative visualization. What does it feel like now that I already bought my mother a home? You go through the experience, you actually feel the emotions. You might get emotional. By going through the experience and by experiencing the emotions of it already happening, you actually attract it a lot faster because then it becomes this thing of like, it already happened, time just hasn't caught up. And if you do that consistently, you are setting the intention out to the universe, to God, to a higher power so that it can happen and manifest.
So is there like a process you go through for that? Like you just close your eyes and you just write down what you want and what you want to happen, and you just kind of feel that emotion and what that would look like, and then you would, because
Yeah.
that sounds very not woo woo, but it sounds kind of like almost, not that it's not practical, but it's like, isn't it more practical to set up like a game plan of what you need to do instead of just visualize? But I get visualizing is also important, so it's
Yeah. So what you just mentioned is like a logical, right? It's like, hey, it's more logical to actually go out there and take action. This involves emotion. So if you
yeah.
just do emotion without logical or logical without emotion, it's not going to happen as fast or as big as if you combine both.
Yeah, you do both. Okay. because most people are one or the other. They're usually not both, right? I feel like
Yeah, there's
so.
people that are very woo woo and they don't do anything. And then there's people that are very logical and they overthink and it's too logical and they never take action because they're never ready.
Analysis paralysis, and so yeah, I'm definitely more of a thinker, but then I know that I've been having to forcing myself to put myself out there, and so it's been challenging, but it's been good at the same time. And for you, I don't know how you were when you first put yourself on camera, if you were like camera shy or whatever, but I'm sure you've improved a lot, right, since you first started. That's good. Um,
Videos. I started making videos in 2016. And I was very, very uncomfortable. I actually didn't want to post any videos because I thought I had this fear of people judging me or people saying, why should they listen to me? I'm not worthy. And I just held myself accountable one day and I said, I'm not going to drive home until I film and upload a video to Facebook. And then I did. And then from there, I started making video more consistently in 2017.
Okay, more and more content, stuff like that. And so yeah, your his Instagram is the Jorge Contreras for those of you guys who want to check it out. And I think we're gonna be wrapping up, but before we do, I just wanted to see, are there anything last words you want to say to any upcoming entrepreneurs or people who are interested in financial freedom? And I think it's interesting because not everyone's interested in that. Some people are content with where they're at, but and some people are not, but they just don't know what to do. And some people are on that journey, but it's just not as easy, right, for them. But is there anything that you want to say to those who are listening and watching?
Yeah, definitely come up with a goal that you have and then find someone who's already created that goal that can help you get there faster.
Okay, so find a mentor or someone who has the results that you have, pretty much.
Exactly, that they want.
Okay, awesome. Well, and people can find you at the Jorge Contreras, Contreras, on
Yep.
Instagram and on YouTube as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
THE
So
Jorge Contreras.
yeah, awesome. So yeah, I just want to thank you for hopping on the Success Spotlight, Jorge, and look forward to chatting with you soon. We'll chat soon. Awesome. So that ends on Success Spotlight for today. Thank you, Jorge, for hopping on, and hope you guys were able to learn a lot of just the ways that you can make money, such as through Airbnb. There's a lot of ways to monetize now, especially online, and that are not just traditional ways of making money, such as a 9 to 5. So if you're interested, check out Jorge at the Jorge Contreras on Instagram. And if you guys have any more questions, feel free to send him a DM and he will be getting back to you. Awesome. Thanks, guys, for hopping on today's show. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.